My last question for today's Bible study is how to walk in God, in your God-given gift. Let me say that again. How to walk in your God-given gift. We just read verse 11 through 14, which was Apostle Paul speaking to young Timothy, encouraging him to be what? Be an example for the believers with what? In his speech, in his conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. I want to say this: when God has gifted you with something, you should be able to walk in boldness and not be afraid because of your age or something. Apostle Paul saw that it was important for Timothy to be an example. See, Apostle Paul made it. He thought it was so important to just for Timothy to be an example for believers. So it's so important to just be an example. So he mentioned five things that were important. He said your speech, where you speak is important. Where your presentation, your speech, you need to be able to speak well. The next thing he said, conduct. This is something that I'm seeing a lot, that a lot of preachers, a lot of young ministers, not even just young, olders too, their conduct is out of order. They can speak well, but their conduct is not lining up. They're not being an example for the Christian believers. And another thing Paul said, he said love. You gotta have love. I see preachers nowadays and ministers nowadays, they don't preach in love. They preach in hate. They preach in the way of I'm trying to tear you down and tear you down and tear you down. But we got to find a way to love people. We're telling them the truth now. I don't mean to love them and don't tell them the truth. I mean love them, but give them in truth. Do it with love. Amen. Do it with love. The next thing Paul said mentioned to Timothy was in faith. It's so important that us young is for believers of ministers, or even not a minister, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be an example. You're supposed to be an example at your job, at whatever at your school. It's so important to have faith. It's so important to believe. When everybody is doubting, you got to keep going. You got to keep that faith. You got to make people say, man, that person believed, man, I got to believe in the God that they serve because somehow God worked it out for them. Amen. And the last thing Paul said, and which is so important in today's time, purity. He said, it's meaning you got to stay clean. You got to keep